internships, and by the time I graduated, I had 3 full-time job offers on the table, and I would say that was the hardest decision I had to make. We think that when you got a bad choice and a good choice, we think that's a hard decision. The hardest decisions are when you got multiple good options. So I'm sure all of y'all have that problem at some point. But I ended up getting that full-time job offer, and in my final semester of college, I was working an internship where it was 40 hours a week, so I was working full-time. I had 5 classes, and I had to take 5 classes in order to graduate that semester. And my grandmother was actually going through hospice that semester, and she ended up passing away that April. And so I had a few more challenges. But despite all of the challenges that I've shared along the way, by the end of college, as I said, I would have never imagined having 3 full-time job offers, Amazon bestseller. I had spoken to over 1,000 people, from students to professionals at various organizations, from Fortune 500 to nonprofit organizations to different universities. And even now, I've spoken to students in North Carolina, South Carolina, Ohio, Georgia. I would have never imagined these things happening. I would have never imagined being on the front page of the Kennesaw website or being featured in the Atlanta Business Chronicle. I would have never imagined these things to happen. So the accomplishments are great, but it's the things that I learned along the way that I believe equipped me for the rest of my life and what I think is to come. So in the next phase of this speech, I'll start to share a few of the principles and key lessons that I've learned, and 4 of them are in my book, Mindset Shift. And this book details 9 principles to help you become an unstoppable leader in business and in life. And the good part of the book is not my story. Fred is in the book, and so you go look at the second half, you'll learn from 8 leaders of the internal audit profession who they have done some amazing things. And so there's so much knowledge that you can soak up in this book. So let's get to the first principle that I want to talk about. And I call that principle a card game. And when I talk about this principle, I like to say that life is like a deck of cards, and you never know what hand you'll be dealt, right? And so everyone gets dealt a hand. Everyone's hands are not the same. Some hands will be quote unquote worse than others, but it's not about the hand that you're dealt. It's more so about having the attitude that no matter what hand you are dealt, that you will approach the game with the mindset that I'm going to play this hand to the best of my ability and do everything that I need to do to turn this quote-unquote bad hand into a good hand and use it for my good and for other people's good. And that's always a better mindset to have, rather than getting dealt a bad hand and immediately losing the game because you say, oh, I can't win with this hand. You never know what'll happen. I mean, if you look at my story, all the things that were happening in the beginning, it was looking like bad hand after bad hand, and it just seemed like things couldn't go right. Things never went right for me. And it wasn't until I adopted the mindset that this stuff is happening, but I'm gonna turn it and use it for my good. And so, of all things that I came up against, I could have made 1,000 excuses for why life isn't fair and for why the hands that I seem to be dealt were quote-unquote riddled with adversity. And looking back, I now see that you can maneuver through being dealt a bad hand in life. And honestly, when you get dealt a bad hand and you still win, the win is much sweeter. And you get to inspire other people along the way, which is really the best part, and it's really priceless when someone says, that thing that you overcame, it really inspired me, it really helped me to overcome this specific thing in my situation. So In fact, I actually enjoy having to do the hard thing first because it sets you up to crush any obstacle that comes after the fact. And so next time you get dealt a bad hand, I want you to ask yourself, how will I play these cards so that I win the game that I'm playing, rather than why was I dealt this bad hand? So the next principle that I want to share is just about failing forward. And you see the two cliffs, and he's jumping to success, and it's probably scary to go through failure to get to success, because you can fall down in the middle and fall into water, and as my wife would say, probably sharks in the water, and there's a bunch of stuff in the water. So it can be scary to think about failing forward. But failure is a friend, and it's a friend that gets you closer to your goals. And take, for instance, my experience with trying so many things that did not work out for me. I have worked at Panda Express, I have worked at Walmart, I have worked at Dunkin' Donuts, I was a Lyft driver, I was a forklift operator, I worked at Best Buy, started several businesses that didn't work out, had multiple majors in college, and at the same time I had people criticizing me, asking me, well, why don't you just pick one thing and stick with it? Well, the homeless event that we put together in 2018 that I mentioned, I actually had a mentor who I met at that park, and he became a mentor from that day. He was walking his dog, and I was standing next to our U-Haul that we brought all the clothes and the food and the DJ equipment and everything. And he was walking his dog, and he was like, "Hey, are you a rapper?" And I was like, "No, I'm not a rapper. I'm an entrepreneur." And we just put this event together to feed the homeless. And he gave me, when I told him that, he gave me a business card. And we talked, and he was telling me about how he had a company, and his dad had a company, his grandfather had a company. And he ended up becoming my mentor for a short period of time. And one of the things that I asked him about was, at the time I had a company, and I asked him about, do you think people keep their startups open for too long? And he told me he believes that most people don't recognize when it's time to let a startup go. And so that message really resonated with me, and I was contemplating shutting mine down at the time. That message resonated with me, and it resonated with me in more areas of my life than just that one business. It resonated with me as far as my college major with different jobs. Being able to quickly identify whether or not you can see yourself doing something for a long period of time is an extremely valuable skill that I encourage you all to develop. And I believe that because I'm not much older than y'all, I think we are at an age where it's important to try different things and try as many things as you can when you don't have children and a lot of different obligations that older people have. And so he told me most people don't recognize when to move on from a startup, and I encourage you to apply that in other areas of your life and just be good at realizing if something is for you for the long term or not. So I encourage you to just fall into what works for you with all that you have, and again, don't be afraid to view failure as a step in the right direction. So I love this quote by Mark Twain. He said, "The world doesn't owe you anything, it was here first." And so I really love that quote when I saw it, and I'm like, I gotta put that one in my PowerPoint. This is so true. And I'm sure many of you have also heard the quote that success is earned, not given, and that the rent is due each and every day. I'm sure y'all have heard that quote. This is the attitude that you should approach life with, because honestly, I'm learning that it doesn't get any easier, you just get better. And so you have to be willing to earn everything that you get out of life. And it's not going to be easy. It won't happen overnight. And no one is coming to save you. So when you operate from a place of already having in your mind that you're willing to earn whatever it is that you get in life, it'll be 10 times easier to go through those hard moments and to achieve the results that you want. On that same note, there'll be moments where you may work hard for something and you don't get the results that you want. That's the name of the game. That's how it goes sometimes. You don't always get what you work for. But again, those are moments where you have to persevere. You have to keep going. You have to figure it out. But I want you to be confident in that if you choose to do the work and you choose to do the hard things, that the things that you want in life, more times than not, will be rewarded to you. Now, this next principle is, I like this. I like business strategy, and it's very interesting to me. And so, just going home and building your own SWOT analysis and assessing your strengths, assessing your weaknesses, assessing threats to the success that you want to build in your career and opportunities that you have is extremely important. And I think what all this boils down to is just self-evaluation. And I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with all the time. I struggle with it, and I may never get it perfect, but I think as long as we do a pretty good job looking ourselves in the mirror and facing the truth, whether it be a bad thing or a good thing. And I'm pretty sure what comes to mind when I say look in the mirror and face the truth is probably more so the bad things, stuff that you can do better. But there's also another side to that coin where you have to realize the things that you do well. And I myself was for a long time so focused on I want to become a success that I didn't look in the mirror and give myself credit for already being a success in a number of ways. And so the only way to be the best version of yourself is to look in the mirror and just be completely honest about what it is that you see. If you identify things that you can improve on and be better at, you'll become a better person. If you identify things that you're good at that you didn't give your credit for, you can leverage that to become a better person. And so, as I said, I wanted to become a success so bad that I constantly failed to give myself credit for the success that I had achieved in so many ways in my life. And this was weighing on my self-confidence and making me feel as though the stuff that I was doing was never good enough. And I had to take a long, hard look in the mirror and just correct some things, but I also had to give myself credit for things that I had achieved. I had to tell myself, you are a success. I had to tell myself, you're on the way to becoming a first-generation college graduate. You are self-sustaining. You pay your own bills. You provide for yourself at a young age. You've done things that no one in your family has done before. But again, there were also things I need to be better at. And I challenge you to look in the mirror and just be honest with yourself. And you'll thank yourself for it. Now, this represents people. And this is the principle that I mentioned that's not in my book, but I really have learned the power of people over the past, I would say, close to 2 years now. And I'll say if it had not been for people, I probably wouldn't be standing here right now. I probably wouldn't be working at Deloitte. Probably wouldn't have written a book. Probably wouldn't have 3 job offers. It all started when I was interning at UPS in the external reporting department, and I was, again, sharing my story with someone who was a supervisor, and they asked me to give a speech at UPS, and what that turned into was another speech because someone saw the speech and they were like, we want you to speak to our group, and what that turned into is, at this point, 10 or 15 more speeches. And so people are the most important thing in life from a business perspective and just a general life perspective. And the most powerful thing that you can do for yourself is to build relationships. And as Fred mentioned, Chief Audit Executive at Apple came last
Last April.
Last April, he came and we sat down and we just had a 15-minute, just genuine conversation. I didn't go in there trying to get anything from him. We just genuinely got to know each other. And that's how he ended up becoming a mentor. And that's how I've been able to gain many other mentors. He mentioned that I've been to breakfast with the managing partner of my office, and we actually have made that a regular thing. And so just really value people. And I'm so glad that I learned the power of networking, and more important than just networking, being genuine in doing so. So I encourage you, don't look at people as targets, but if you take a genuine and deliberate effort to get to know people with no strings attached, there will almost always be a level of benefit that comes from the relationship, because people like to help people that they like. And so that's one of the things that has really helped me in my career. And I met people all across Deloitte. I meet regularly with partners in consulting. I meet regularly with partners in the advisory practice. So building relationships with people is very important, and I can't iterate it enough. And I'm meeting people now that I would have never guessed I would be meeting a few years ago. I actually just, and Fred didn't know this, but I actually just had a conversation with, and it was just a one-on-one conversation with the chief growth officer of Kellogg. And she was actually the person that started Coca-Cola's e-commerce business. And so the power of networking and getting to know people, I hope that by me sharing these examples, that is one of the other things that you really hang on to from today. And these are the kind of things that come when you value people. And again, I can't express how important building solid, genuine relationships are to your success in business and in life. And without further ado, this is my next book. Release date is to be determined, but all of the financial trouble that I have been through over the past, I would say, 5 or so years, it inspired me to just learn about personal finance and building better habits to get myself into a better financial situation. And now I get asked questions all the time. I was telling my wife earlier that I had someone who I played high school football with messaging me about what stocks do you invest in. And so I'm very passionate about personal finance and just sharing what I know. I don't know everything, but I know a good bit. And so this is my next book, Personal Finance, How to Get Good with Money. Just a few tidbits. It talks about budgeting. It talks about some forms of investing that I like to do. It talks about the most important thing, living below your means. And so with that being said, as I close, I hope that this young, once confused man from Fort Valley, Georgia, surrounded by peach trees and riddled with football players, raised by a single mother and a grandmother, whose father was killed at the age of 12, shared something with you today that can influence the rest of your journey in a positive direction. So I want to thank you for your time today, and I'll be around for a few minutes. Actually, does anyone have any questions? Might get a book.
So as far as like what you want to see for yourself in the world, like what goals do you have for yourself, not necessarily for like long term, but how are you reaching like those goals that you have?
Yeah, so I would say one goal that I have for myself is I do want to get on the New York Times bestsellers list for books. And so the way that I'm doing it is just writing books. It's just that simple, just doing it and doing it to the best of my ability. And, you know, hopefully one day the fruits of my labor will yield the New York Times bestsellers list. So that's one of my goals for, I guess, the short term. So I guess you can look.
Thank you.
Would you guys have been pleased?
Appreciate it.
Where were your 3 internships, and how did you decide what was the best course to take as far as full-time offers went?
Yeah, so I did an internship with a company called Tidwell Group. I did an internship with UPS, and I also did an internship with Norfolk Southern. Well, I would say me deciding which route to take, it was difficult, but at the same time, it was only difficult because I made it difficult. I knew what the right route to take was in the accounting industry. I mean, you probably hear a lot of people saying that if you go to Big Four, it's kind of like a solid foundation for your career. And so that's just something that I didn't personally want to miss out on. And the way that I went about doing it was talking to the people at the companies that I internship and just being honest, being authentic with them about what I was thinking about. And one of the things that I know about people is that if some people will support you, others won't, but for those that really support you and want the best for you, they'll tell you, I think this is the best route for you, and we'll always have a place for you, but I think you should do this first. And that's really what happened. The people at UPS were telling me, I think you should go there first, and if you ever want to come back, we'd always have a place for you. And so that was my decision-making process, and you get one too. Thank you. And you get one too.
Now you have to ask a question.
So then, how have you have people in your life, have they decided not to keep in touch? Have they been fair weathered? If so, how did you feel?
I'm sorry, I couldn't
Have
hear
you had fair weather friendships, and if so, how have you moved on?
Oh yeah, that's something that everybody would have to deal with. I mean, that's just a fact of life that everybody can't go where you're going. You'll have some people that will be with you for life. You have other people that, at a certain point, you just kind of grow apart, and that's just a part of growing up and becoming an adult. You have to realize that a lot of things in life are seasonal, and so that doesn't preclude friendships. And you can't take it to heart. You just gotta realize that's a part of life. So that's the way I look at it. Definitely had some friendships that they didn't last, but I look at it like they weren't supposed to last, because if they were, they should be friends. So, and you get one too.
She had a question too.
Yeah, I'm gonna give her one too.
Well, let her ask it first.
So, I know you said that you were asked multiple times with UPS to do speeches. Have you always just been really good at speaking in front of people, or how did you get to that point?
I think that was one of those things where I didn't give myself credit for it. I probably was good at it. My father-in-law would say that I talk a lot. When I met him, I was telling him, yeah, I'm an introvert. He said, what? You're an introvert. And that was the moment I had to go look in the mirror and say, I guess I'm not an introvert. So that being said, I think it's something that I've always been able to kind of do. I didn't give myself credit for it. But that doesn't mean that I wasn't nervous. I still get nervous with every speech. I have to just do it, and after a while, the nerves, they subside, and I think it's something that I've always kind of had. But growing up, I listened to motivational speakers and stuff on YouTube, and so I kind of learned from them a little bit. But yeah, I mean, if it's something that you want to get good at, it'll just take some time and some practice, and who knows, you may not get nervous, you may get nervous like me.
Question. So this was actually for the wife.
Okay.
So you spent in college. She was like, they have a car, clothes, having a hard time. So what did you see in him in college? You were like, that's. Or was he like?
I liked him for who he was, and he was. I don't know. He was interesting to me when I first met him, because I don't. Really, I'll be honest, if I was in a class with you guys, I probably would not talk unless you talked to me first. So he just opened up and started talking to me, and I was like, oh, okay, he's pretty cool. And then I learned about him, and for me, it's not about what you have, it's about who you are. So That's why.
Thank you.
You see why she got a ring? Would you mind passing it back? Thank you. We got 2 more.
So I have a question. I know accounting can be, a busy profession. How do you balance like work life and then family life? Is
So-
that an easy balance or?
With COVID, it's actually been a really cool change. I know at Deloitte, at least, I'm pretty sure everybody, but at Deloitte, there has been this mindset shift of you pretty much, like you work generally when your team works, but you have flexibility around, like if I wanted to work from 8 to 4 and take a 2-hour break to spend with my family, or if I had kids, go pick my kids up from school, and then I want to come back at 6 and work from 6 to 9, that's okay. And the majority of teams at Deloitte now operate like that. It's really cool, and even if you wanted to take just a mental break for an hour or 2, or go to the gym for an hour or 2, it just makes working hard that much easier. And honestly, I never thought I'd be working in a workforce where we have that level of flexibility. And so I would say it's honestly easy with that level of flexibility. All I have to do personally is just get on and work earlier, and so I get off earlier. And when she gets off of work, we're both off, and so we get to spend time together. So.
One more buck. Person in the front.
Okay.
Have you ever looked into like the tax side of accounting, or have you always been in audit?
So I didn't personally want to do like the tax side, but I am highly interested in the tax side as a part of like personal finance stuff that I talk about, because I know it like helps me. And so like when I took the CPA exam, I really paid attention on that portion, because I know like it can apply to your life every day. I actually just did our taxes like 2 or 3 days ago, so I didn't want to like do it as a profession, but it's definitely interesting to me from a personal finance perspective. Are you thinking about going into tax?
I'm not sure yet, but I don't. This
Gotcha.
class is like made me more interested in audit,
Yeah,
but I haven't experienced tax, so I don't know.
yeah. I would say from my experience, if you go in audit, there are a lot more opportunities that come from audit, rather than if you go into like tax, then you'll be mostly dealing with other tax jobs basically. So
Yeah, I have an internship in the summer, and I work with both, so
Okay,
I can
that's
like see.
perfect.
Yeah.
that's perfect. Yeah. So yeah, you'll see exactly what you want to do with it. I mean, it may be to where you actually want to be in tax for the rest of your career, but you'll get to see during your internship. You guys always know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you have a question though?
Okay.
So did you took your job at Deloitte like right out of graduation?
It was in October, so maybe like 6 months before graduation.
Okay. And then also like, so now that you have your CPA and you're working at like a big firm and stuff, I guess like what do you see your next step and your next goal being?
Yeah, so I passed the exam. I haven't been there for a year yet, so I got to meet the year requirement to get my CPA actual license. So that's definitely my next step. As far as from a career perspective, beyond that, I really don't know.
I have an idea. And it's going to be our guest speaker Wednesday.
Maybe.
You have an offer from him if you want.
Yeah, he wants me to come and work for him at Apple. I don't know for sure if that's what I want to do, but
And that's big bucks too.
So like are you
Deja vu.
solely fit in just like accounting career related, or are you like
No.
open to anything business or?
yeah, I would say definitely open to more business stuff, like even consulting related work. So yeah, definitely not just accounting. So good question. I like that question.
Thank you.
So when he's in his 40s, he's going to be a best-selling author, travel the world, have book signings, making speeches everywhere, maybe some consulting on the side. That's what you're going to be doing.
That would be nice.
Living the good life.
So, well, thank y'all.
Well, let's give him a big hand. So, Taron mentioned that last April, when Aaron promised me he'd come once a year in April. You could fly over, take a break and fly over here. So when I had him in